Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Maple Grove Scripture Reading Podcast. So last time we finished out Job chapter 28, which was that wisdom poem. After the whole mining section and the price catalog and the searching of every domain that could be searched, the poem arrived at its answer, that God alone knows where wisdom is because wisdom was present when he formed the world. And what he said to us, it was the fear of the Lord. That's wisdom. To shun evil is understanding. And we pointed out that Job, as the narrator described him in chapter 1, had been living that answer the whole time. So now we're turning a corner. This formal dialogue between Job and his friends, that's over. You had Bildad's 6-verse finale. You had Zophar's just silence. You had Job's closing speech in chapters 26 and 27, and then you had the wisdom poem in chapter 28. And now Job begins what is sometimes called his final soliloquy. It's a long address that runs through chapter 31, moving from memory to lament to oath. It's a different kind of speech than anything that we've heard from him in the dialogue section so far, and the shift of tone is noticeable from the opening line. So let me read through verses 1 through 6 of Job 29. Job continued his discourse, "How I long for the months gone by, for the days when God watched over me, when his lamp shone on my head, and by his light I walked through the darkness. Oh, for the days when I was in my prime, when God's intimate friendship blessed my house, when the Almighty was still with me, and my children were around me, and my path was drenched with cream, and the rock poured out for me streams of olive oil." So the shift from the dialogue, that's very real here, right? Like you can see it. For 26 chapters, Job's been arguing with Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, and with God that he couldn't find him. So he made sustained logical cases, he deployed irony, contempt, he's sworn oaths, and issued direct challenges. The energy of the dialogue before this is very confrontational, even when Job is at his most anguished. Well, chapter 29 is just quieter than all that. It opens not with an argument, but with longing. How I long for the months gone by. That's not a claim. It's not a challenge. It's just a wish that things could be the way that they were. It has the quality of a memory that's been handled many times, that's worn smooth by revisiting it so many times. And I think about the experience of looking at old photographs, right? Like not the curated ones that people post online, but the ones that have just been sitting in a box that are maybe slightly faded with soft edges. Somebody who is there, though, a time that's genuinely gone. There's a kind of ache that comes with that. It's not the same as grief exactly. It's more closer to wishing, longing, like how I long for the months gone by. Job's going to spend this chapter describing what those months looked like. And the first thing that he reaches for, it's not the wealth, it's not the position, it's not the respect of the elders at the gate, all of which are going to appear later in the chapter. But the first thing he reaches for is God. How I long for the months gone by, for the days when God watched over me. The contrast with where Job is now is implied rather than stated. He doesn't say, unlike now when God is not watching, because he doesn't really need to. The whole book has been his experience of what it feels like when God seems absent. But now he's remembering what it felt like when God was present. And what he remembers first is being watched over. And that phrase, watched over, it's the language of a shepherd, a guardian, somebody who keeps an eye on you because you matter to them. It's not surveillance, it's care. Job's remembering a time when he moved through the world with awareness that he wasn't alone, that somebody with power and goodness had him in view. He continues, when his lamp shone on my head, and by his light I walked through the darkness. That lamp above the head, that's an image of somebody guiding you, protecting you, being lit from above so you're able to see farther ahead. Psalm 119, 105 says very similar things, using kind of similar language, where he says, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. In Proverbs, the lamp of the Lord searches out the inmost places. Light in biblical imagery consistently means orientation and direction, the ability to navigate. The darkness in verse 3, that's not necessarily crisis or suffering. It's just the ordinary darkness that exists in human life, the places that you can't see what's coming, where the path's just not clear. Job walked through that darkness, not because the darkness had been removed, but because he had light. God's lamp was shining, and that was enough. And then he says, oh, for the days when I was in my prime, and God's intimate friendship blessed my house. The Hebrew word here for friendship, for the thing that blessed his house, that carries the sense of being taken into God's confidence, having access to what God's doing, being trusted with what's not being shared broadly. Like Job's not simply saying that God was his buddy. He's saying that God let him in. There was a time when the closeness of God rested over his household like something tangible, not just general divine goodness, but something personal, something like being trusted with a secret. It's the most intimate description Job has offered of his relationship with God. And he's putting it in the past. The longing in the opening line isn't just for prosperity. It's really for this, for God. He continues, when the Almighty was still with me and my children were around me. The word still is doing a lot of work in this line. Was still with me means, and Job knows it means, before he wasn't. So it's not just a memory. It's a before and after that's just built into the grammar of the sentence. There was a time when the Lord was with Job. That time is now located in the past. Children surrounding him, that's the second element of this. In the world this text comes from, to have your children around you was to have evidence of legacy and blessing, like your name continuing, your household full. Job knows his children have died. He's known it since chapter 1. When he says, my children were around me, he's describing something that he cannot get back. So these two losses, the presence of God and the presence of his children, appear in the same breath, and that's not an accident. They're the two losses that can't be repurchased, can't be replaced. They're the ones that money and status could not restore, even if you got your money and status back. So the last verse, he says, when my path was drenched with cream and the rock poured out for me streams of olive oil. There are 6 whens here that have been building since verse 2. And they close with this line. And it's a vivid, it's an extravagant image in this passage. There's the cream that is everywhere. There's olive oil flowing from a solid rock. And these are images of agricultural abundance and pushed into the language of excess. Like not just adequate, not just comfortable, but overwhelming. Like your steps of washing cream, it means that the dairy herds are producing so abundantly you can't even use it all. The rock streaming with olive oil means the harvest was so full that it's overflowing the press. It's running over bare stone. So it's a hyperbolic image, and it's supposed to be. Job's describing not just prosperity, but the feeling of prosperity, the sensation of walking through a world where good things are everywhere and available and flowing freely toward you. If you've ever had a season of your life where everything seemed to be going right at once, well, then you've had some version of what Job is describing. And then multiply that by everything that he had with herds and harvest and the family, the standing and the favor of God. And now all that's gone. The whole 6-verse passage builds up this picture of what was, the divine protection, the lamp above his head, God's intimate friendship over his tent, children around him, abundance everywhere, and then it simply stops. He doesn't tell us yet what happened. He doesn't contrast it with the present because the reader already knows the contrast. He just holds the memory up, looks at it, and aches. And notice throughout all of it what Job attributes each piece of his former life to. It's God watching over him. God's lamp shone. God's friendship blessed his tent. The Almighty was with him. The abundance of verses 5 and 6 flow from the presence of God in verses 2 through 4. Job's not remembering his own success or his own accumulated wealth. He's remembering God. He's not pining for a bigger bank account or more sheep in the field. He's pining for the season when the Almighty was still with him, when the lamp was shining, when the friendship of God was a real thing, a felt thing over his house. That's what the loss is. And it's not a loss that he can fix by anything that he does. The friends have been suggesting the fix for 28 chapters, but Job knows better. And next time we're going to continue with chapter 29, and Job's going to describe the life that he lived at the city gate, his role in the community, the respect he had, and the reason for it all. We'll pick that up next time. Hope you have a great day. I'll talk to you again soon. God bless.